Dear colleagues, thank you for the chance to share our experience on the field of trace elements. The main goal of the presentation is to present current aspects on trace elements matter in general and specifically with a focus on copper and zinc, especially in inflammation. Essential trace elements in this group, also copper and zinc, together with vitamins, are referred to as micronutrients, important components of the diet. Micronutrients are significant for vital functions in the body. They act specifically, and one element cannot be replaced by another. The minor considerations about the essential character of the trace elements in general are: the homeostasis is strongly regulated because of their dual nature. Pathological alterations occur in deficiency and in accumulation. So, important question arises about the need of adequate supplementation and recommended daily intake. The main pathway of the elements to enter into the body is by food and water. The intake could be very complicated in specific physiological situations like elderly, pregnancy, surgical intervention, parenteral nutrition. Deficiency is associated with impaired biological functions and physiological processes. The overload leads to toxicity predominantly through the mechanism of oxidative stress. Trace elements in the blood circulate as protein-bound and labile pools. The free ions in increased level fractions of copper and iron are with high potential to provoke oxidative stress via Fenton reaction. Ceruloplasmin is the specific protein transporter for copper, and 70% of blood zinc circulates bound to albumin. Certain pathologies are associated with specific redistribution between the bound and labile plasma pools. Because of very complex links between different elements, the multi-elemental analysis is with marked advantage in complicated clinical evaluation. The essentiality of copper and zinc is well known. They are important for normal growth and development, for normal functioning of neural system and immune system. The significance of zinc for immune reactions is emphasized. Usually, trace elements analysis is applied for diagnosis and treatment monitoring of some rare diseases. Typical examples for copper dyshomeostasis are Menkes and Wilson's diseases with genetically caused disorders. Wilson disease is characterized with copper accumulation and drain in liver, but possible deficiency in blood or constant levels of blood total copper, but with specific redistribution between bound and free fractions with ceruloplasmin becomes poor of copper. Copper deficiency is clinically manifested by neurological and hematological disturbances. Echogenetic disorders are caused by the influence of certain environmental factors. General conditions such as inflammation are also associated with a change in the trace element status and in proteins engaged in their metabolism. Acute and chronic inflammation have a specific protein profile. Ceruloplasmin is a positive acute reactant, so during inflammation it rises, thus leading to copper increase in the blood also. Zinc deficiency is up to 70% all over the world. The minor consequence is immune dysfunction with worsening of infections outcome. According to the World Health Organization, zinc deficiency is the fifth leading cause for mortality and morbidity in development countries. The evaluation of zinc deficiency is a complicated issue with possible subclinical forms difficulty to be recognized. A rare condition is zinc accumulation. A 47-year-old woman with suspected multiple sclerosis referred for evaluation for a 2 to 3 year history of progressive knees and back pain, weakness, paresthesias, sensory loss, ataxia, and frequent falls was reported as a case report. And during this period, this woman received blood transfusions due to unexplained anemia and leukopenia. She has had dentures for many years. A lot of examinations was made, and the diagnosis which was established was myeloneuropathy and anemia due to copper deficiency secondary to zinc overload associated with prolonged use of high zinc denture cream. So the recommendation to this patient was to change the denture cream by choosing one with a low zinc content and oral intake of copper substitute. Zinc is essential cofactor for thymulin, a thymic hormone important for T helper cells maturation. In zinc deficiency, this process is impaired with imbalance between Th1 and Th2 cells and a decrease of T cells finally. Both zinc deficiency and accumulation influence T cells. Zinc excess inhibits T cells activity. IL-1, IL-6, and tumor necrotic factor alpha are cytokines important for both cells and humoral immunity. In acute inflammation, rapid and transient decline of plasma zinc arises. Additionally, intracellular redistribution of zinc mediated by inflammatory cytokines occurs with zinc localization predominantly in compartments with active protein synthesis. Hypozinkemia presents when cytokine production is strongly elevated in prominent acute phase response. Significant elevation in tumor necrotic factor alpha and IL-6 results in a sharp decrease in serum zinc. Chronic inflammation is characterized also by stimulated production of inflammatory cytokines. During this phase, in patients with a low dietary zinc intake, plasma and intracellular zinc could be lower with gene upregulated expression of IL-1, alpha, IL-1 beta, and IL-6. According to publication in PubMed, zinc is the most studied trace element during the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of data about copper and iron exist also. Our study investigates the relation between serum levels of copper and zinc as well as the copper-zinc ratio in the acute phase of COVID-19 course. Only individuals with need a hospitalization are included in COVID-19 group. The laboratory findings are associated with decrease of albumin and high levels of C-reactive protein and copper-zinc ratio. Copper-zinc ratio significantly correlates with degree of oxidative stress and inflammation, undernutrition, and depressed immune function. In the group of COVID-19, 44% of the participants are with serum zinc below the lower reference limit, in comparison to the control group of healthy individuals with only 20%. The main physiological pathways responsible for reduced plasma zinc in inflammation are: zinc induces the production of metallothioneins in the liver. These are intracellular transporters and strong proteins for zinc, copper, and cadmium. They are overexpressed in inflammation and they serve as a zinc depot in the liver. Albumin is decreased because it is a negative acute reactant. Influence of IL-1 and 6 on zinc balance is also very complicated. Metallothioneins are excellent reactive oxygen species scavengers. Increased serum copper and decreased zinc observed in our study is presented in this graph. The copper-zinc ratio correlates very well with C-reactive protein. The Spearman coefficient is high in all three cases. In microelementology, trace elements should be laboratory studied in combination with markers of inflammation because of a tight link between them. Our own observation point alteration of copper and zinc very early during the COVID-19 course, mainly as a response to inflammation. Also, there one recent review with the same result. 63% of 9 studies show a significantly higher copper-zinc ratio in inflammation. Some authors even recommended copper-zinc ratio as a better inflammatory marker than C-reactive protein and erythrocyte sedimentation rate. And the last slide combined one table which is improved, and we can see that there are some authors which report copper as a positive acute protein reactant and zinc as a negative acute reactant. This slide especially make attention in the balanced diet for an oversupply of the body with micronutrients. Nutritional intervention as a preventive approach. Supplementation in the early stages of infection in risk groups is an easy and inexpensive approach to improve the outcome of infections. Vegetarians are at risk of zinc deficiency because the dietary phytides inhibit the intestinal absorption of the element, thus leading to reduced bioavailability. So, thank you very much for this opportunity.